In any competition, you're sure to encounter different height props. Now, during the stage prep process, this is where you're gonna gain the most information about where you wanna shoot from, how you wanna shoot from it, and how to assess if you can even get to that position. I'm gonna walk you through a few steps that I go through as I'm assessing a stage and finding the right positions for me and what I'm capable of shooting.
We are MDT. We design, test, and create precision rifle chassis and accessories to help you shoot better.
One of the tricks that I use is using different aspects of my body to relate to different target heights without touching the prop in order to know that I can safely and comfortably get to that position and have the best effect on target. So, for instance, I know that anything that sits at approximately the underside of my armpit, if I were to go up to it and it's at that line, so in this case you can see the top of this black line is right at my armpit, I should comfortably be able to put my bag here, but that's at the upper limit of where I can comfortably get behind a rifle and stand fully square and stable. I can see immediately I'm looking through my target, through my reticle onto my target. I have a normal to wide stance, but the rifle feels a little high. So I'm gonna narrow up my stance a little, and now I'm even more comfortable behind the rifle. If it goes to the top of my shoulder or somewhere in between here, there's no way I can get safely behind the rifle without standing to my tippy toes to raise that portion of my body up and get square behind the rifle. As soon as it drops below that, between my waist and my underside of my armpit, that's what I would call a standing or high standing position. I can't just look through the rifle, so I'm gonna widen my stance until I get to the approximate height where I can just barely lean into the rifle and get down into the scope. Once I get from somewhere just above my belt line to just above my knee, and at my knee level, I get into kneeling positions. You're right at kneeling, somewhere between a kneeling and a standing position. So I can take this by widening out. If you're flexible enough, I can widen my stance as much as possible and get very stable on the target. But I can feel the stretch on the inside of my legs, and it's gonna be difficult to maintain that. But I might choose that if it's only one position and the next positions are either all high or all low. If they're all high, I'll probably do what I just did. If they're not, I'm gonna drop to one knee, and now you can see it brings my chest directly behind the buttstock into the target, ready to send around. If we use our rule of thumb, if I were to walk up to this and say, oh yeah, it's just above my waist, I could kneel on this, right? Using that rule, that would work, except there's one other element you have to look at. Where is the ground in relation to where you'll be kneeling? Just because of the hole that's on the left side of my knee, suddenly there's no way I can get into this position. I'm gonna slide my rifle from this high point to this low point. If I go here, I'm still at about a hip. Here, I'm also right around a hip. I should be able to get close just because of that one change. Suddenly, I'm 6 inches off the difference. And because of where these rocks are and the hole, I can suddenly see through to my target. Now it's very high, but this kneeling position is viable. In any competition you shoot, the difference between a good position and a bad position can be as little as an inch or two. Taking the time to evaluate not only the height of the prop where it sits, but the height of the prop in the area you'll be shooting from here is a much better reference tool to make sure you get the best position possible. This position is just above my knee. My knee is here, so I know that this being at or above my knee is an easy low kneeling position for my height. There's different props that you need to look through in order to understand if you could get to that position. For certain body types, if you're bigger and you have a bigger belly, or if you're very tall and you have a lot of upper body strength, it's gonna be very difficult at times to get to a very low position without feeling very crammed into the rifle and very tight in your position. That's not what we want to have an ideal condition while we're setting into a rifle for a precision shot. So we may need to look for an alternative way of getting into that position. So I'm gonna kneel, seated on my foot, and I can be on target and into the rifle and be very stable. You can notice my right leg is chicken wing to the right. So what I can do to tie in just a slight bit more stability is bring my foot in ever so slightly so that my right shoulder and arm are captured by my inside of my right leg. In a fully seated position, it's very possible. I can see perfectly behind the rifle, except it's very slow to get out of. The advantage you have is that you can be very stable and very comfortable for a long time, but time is of the essence in PRS. So if it takes me an extra 2 or 3 seconds to do that, those 3 seconds may be the difference between getting my last rounds off and not. So I'm much more capable of taking this shot and simply standing up, than I am going into a more awkward, fully seated position. So another common position is what we call double kneeling. Double kneeling is both knees on the ground and feet behind you, and you'll simply push away from the rifle and you'll try to tuck up as much as you can to get your knees directly under your center of gravity so that your body, if you take a line from your belly button and draw it straight down, that should hit inside of the middle of the box from your knees to your toes. And if you do that, you end up holding up your weight a little bit with your upper body and your lower back, but you're also using the rifle for support. So it makes it a very comfortable position. But again, you have to optimize that. If you're very comfortable and fast getting out from a double kneeling, I think it's a little bit slower than a standard because I can just stand up. Whereas in a double kneeling position, in the position, I've got to stand up one extra motion. Sometimes those extra motions are the ones that cost you the most when you have to do it multiple times. I'm going to quickly build about 7 positions on various rocks that we shoot from here and just walk through how I would get to them and what I'm focusing on as I'm building that position. Here, this is going to be a mid-kneeling position. Common mistake, you place your bag and you go to put your bag down and you start putting your magazine into the prop, or worse yet, you force it down onto your magazine and lift the front of the bag to get to your position. This is not a good idea, mainly because as you try to run your bolt, my mags are tuned fairly well. You can end up jamming or binding your bolt if you're using a bolt action with that magazine, or cause a feeding malfunction, even with a semi-automatic. We want to place our bag so we have a decent margin at the back edge of every prop. Kneeling position, on target, break the shot. Next, we're going to go up to what's about a standing, but we have a rock to our right, so I'm not going to be able to do a traditional standing. So now I've got one foot on the ground, one knee up. I'm going to use this as my right side support so that I can be on target using the front edge of my knee, on target, break the shot. Step up, I'm going to go to the middle of the rock and simply place my right foot here, and again, use a similar position to make sure that I'm on target the whole way. And you can see from the front, my bipod is very, very close to touching the rock. If it were touching, you can see I can flex it there and that was on target. If I break this shot, it's very likely that that round will end up high. I'm gonna reach up and immediately get rid of my bipod, take that 2 seconds and have a perfect shot. If I were to go here, this would be safe, except I'll show you. If I'm on the gun, I can't put my left foot in the position I want in order to get on target. I have to be behind the gun, and you can see that my stance is very awkward. From the rear, I have to lean most of my weight to my left side just so I can get behind the rifle. I can fix that by just moving my bag over to the right, about 7 inches. So here to about here, and suddenly I now have a perfect position to stay square behind the rifle without any issues. And now I have 2 options. One is a leg up, so I can use that for support. My left arm is on the rock. 2, I can try to kneel and do a double kneeling from that same position. So either one of those will work depending on how flexible you are. If you're bigger on the left side and you have to get behind your rifle, this rock is going to impede you. So I'm going to pull away from it, trying to get clearance off my left side, pull the bag back, and now be absolutely square behind the rifle, ready to send the shot. Break it, continue. I'm going to have to experiment because this is very low. Seated, not quite there. Fully seated, square up. This is as close as I can get, and it's reasonably comfortable, but I wouldn't want to be in this position long. Every position is unique. Your body type is unique. And the ultimate goal of all of the things we've shown you is to demonstrate that you can actually find the best positions for you by learning your body and finding relative measurements from, say, your boots to the middle of your thigh. Anywhere in here will likely be better off prone. From the middle of your leg to just above your knee is going to be a low kneeling. These are going to be a high kneeling. From above your hip all the way up to your armpit will likely be a standing position of some sort. Anything above that, you're going to be tippy-toed or need extra height. So with that said, till next time.